thinking about our different stropping techniques, if we're using a forward assist, we're coming around this area and we're essentially sitting on the spine, the sternum and the rib cage here, and then we've got the line coming through the front here. So from this point of view, we are squeezing on the chest, and we have just got a single point of contact, so there's quite a lot of pressure sitting here. It's more difficult because as you pull the horse forward, often their head and neck tucks in, which closes off their airway. So it is a good technique. It is unlikely to cause any damage, but it's not going to be our preferred technique because of that single point of contact and the fact that the head is having to go ahead of the rest of the body, and that's more difficult to manage the airway. When we think about our barrel skid, we've got one point of contact here, and the back strop is sitting just behind the rib cage here. So this one's putting pressure on the sternum, which, as we said, for the forward assist, it's not the end of the world, it's okay. This one here is going to tuck right up into the abdomen. There isn't anything bony holding it in position. So all these abdominal organs are going to be squashed upwards and squashed forwards. So if we're doing just a short lift, this isn't the end of the world, but it's a little bit like somebody picking you up around your waist, especially after a big meal. It's likely to be a little bit uncomfortable. So if we're having to move a horse sideways for a period of time, the sideways skid is nicer because what it does is it sits across muscle, and it sits in this forelimb of the horse here, and it sits in the hind limb here, and it sits in these big muscly areas that we talked about earlier. And the nice thing about this is more like somebody picking you up under your armpits. It's not putting any pressure on any organs, on your cardiovascular system. It might make the muscles feel a little bit sore if you did it for a prolonged period of time, but it's unlikely to cause any real damage. Similarly, when we look at the rearward skid, because the strop sits across the spine here, you've got bone here, and actually you've got a decent amount of muscle covering it. It then comes down around here, and it doesn't cut into the abdomen at all, because it comes around through the back leg and sits again on those big, heavily muscled areas. So again, it's a much more comfortable way to move for a horse. When we're thinking about lifting, again, we've got our big, wide red rescue strops, which, much like the barrel skid, are going to sit in those two areas again, and lifting up into that abdomen is going to be uncomfortable for them. Now, they're nice and wide, so that pressure is going to spread a little bit, but actually it is going to be uncomfortable. So it's a great way of lifting horses because it's quick and it's simple and it's going to get the job done. But if you're thinking about using it for any prolonged period of time, the really nice thing about the down a cow harness or the Anderson sling or large animal lift, any of those, what happens is it's going to spread that pressure all the way along the ventral side of the animal. So most of that's going to sit on the sternum and on the rib cage, and then there's just going to be a little bit of pressure on the abdomen, and it's going to lift from this entire area here and really spread that load across the horse. So you're not going to get these sort of real pinch points, this kind of real tucking up into the abdomen, and it's going to be much more comfortable for a horse to sit in for a longer period.